Today on the Hobby Bench, I'll be looking at Starship terrain for Star Wars Legion. So I play a lot of sci-fi skirmish games like 5 Parsecs from Home, Stargrave, Infinity, and Star Wars Legion. And so I was looking for some terrain that would be a little bit different, something that would probably stand out a little bit more on a tabletop, especially looking at spaceships. And I think especially for some of my games that I've got, it would make like a great objective. And I stumbled upon these Disney Lightyear hyperspeed ships. And honestly, I looked at it as about $8 and I figured, that looks pretty good scale. Looks like it fit pretty well on the tabletop. So I picked one up. And so you've got one here, and I have to say it's really nice detail for it. And it's a pretty solid model. It has some interesting markings on it and, a fair amount of detail. And pretty light. It looks pretty cool, and I think it was worked out really well. Now, for this, I wanted to give it a wash of sepia ink and really sort of dirty and grunge it up some. And, that really helped out. And for some of the distress on there, I ended up just using some gray paint and using a little bit of foam there, broken up, just to sort of add a little bit more scratches and dings and dents. On the bottom, of course, I didn't really care about it. It pooled up a little bit. Of course, at the bottom, you're not really going to be looking at it anymore. You've got these tabs that pull down as landing gear, and I would say that's probably pretty fragile. It'll work for a while. Definitely when you're like storing it and putting away, I flip them down, and then I just sort of move them up and I'm going to leave it out. But I could see these probably, if you kept working with it back and forth for a long time, that those are definitely like maybe crack off. It's solid enough, but I think, if you were a little kid playing with it and, opening up and down, open and down, up and down, up and down, that would definitely break off. So for the scale itself, I think for Star Wars Legion it looks pretty well. It's just about up to its chest and the rear, and in the front maybe a little bit more closer down to its waist. Just mostly because I think that, out of the box, the bases that they have are pretty thick. And so you can sort of see there, moving up a little bit closer, so more up to the waist. So, some pretty decent cover. But around the rear of the ship, obviously, I think pretty much full cover there. Pretty much block out line of sight. But, it's a really nice scale for that. Looks pretty cool. And I think it works out pretty well. I've got some stuff here for Stargrave. These are really more 25 millimeter figures. And these, I think, are just perfect. Definitely looks like a ship. Fits out the scale. And definitely hides out the figure pretty well. I think for sure, if you wanted something that like provide hardcover to block line of sight, this is something that'd work. I've got some stuff, also some Infinity models that are just a little bit larger, but more straddle the size between like Stargrave and like your figures that you have for Star Wars Legion. And these work out great too. I think works out great cover. And so honestly, for these kits, I have to say, I think for the model, it's really good. It has some parts that are open and close, like they have that front hatch here, the pilot. I ended up sealing that shut with some super glue. But man, there's such little work I had to put in this, just like a simple wash, and you had some rough stuff in the bottom that I had scuffing up, as I putting it on, but I don't care because, you look at it top down, you're never going to see it. And, with the markings that it has on it, it's got a fair amount of detail. You can even see in the bottom here, and on the side, the top, these hatches and stuff. It's really a great little model. Like for $8, that's just a steal. And the numbering, all that stuff, I didn't have to really do anything at all. I just added some stress to it. You can look these stripes out on the side. And I think in the back for sure, if you really wanted to put on some object source lighting, that would really work out pretty well. But man, honestly, I think, for the price, great thing to put on the tabletop. It can stand as an objective. Something that's a little different from like you typically would have for like buildings and stuff like that. You want to put out a little landing strip for ships. Great little center focal piece. Add a little bit more life. It makes things a little bit more sci-fi. Definitely worth a buy. And I think for Star Wars Legion, they work out great. And for other miniature games you have, it's a good size for like a single fighter. Certainly think about picking one up. So in closing, it's really a nice piece of terrain. Looks cool on the tabletop. I think for the different models you've got, it work out great. Obviously, probably if you're working like 25 millimeter, maybe for Infinity, that works out just really well. I think that they just provide a great scale for them. But, if you're working for Star Wars Legion, I think it works out well too. Probably the bases, I think, make the models stand up a little bit more. So, they have a little bit more height, I think, compared to the other ones. But still, works out a good scale. I think it's something like definitely, stand out pretty well. So for like a single person fighter, it works out pretty well. And obviously, like, it's an odd design. It's something from like a different IP completely. But I think for Star Wars, you could always just sort of say it's some Outer Rim fighter for some nameless planet and would work just fine.